I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll have the minutes of the last meeting.
Selectmen's meeting minutes, Monday, December 3rd, 2018. The town office at 5 p.m. Present were Shirley Humphrey, Hadley Bucher, Judy Oughton, staff, Chris Littlefield, the town manager, and several citizens. Item 1, minutes of the previous meetings. Hadley read the minutes aloud for November 19, 2018, and motion to accept the minutes with an adjustment concerning trash, and then we voted 3-0 to accept. Under public forum, the question was asked, who got the $600 abatement on Martin Street, and that was Hadley. What is the ordinance process? Trash still present on Blake Street? Do we have a noise ordinance, and are we working on the animal ordinance? Rick Sanborn passed out the letter from the Massachusetts General Hospital regarding his wife Shelley. He told the selectmen and I that we would regret it if we didn't respond to the letter before he goes back to the hospital with his wife. Eric Tuttle insisted that he had a right to speak without being called on, and Judy assured him that he does not, and Chris reinforced that no one has permission to speak without being called on. It is Maine state law that selectmen's meetings are for conducting the town business. If a person outside town management gets to speak, it is through the pleasure of the board. Under item 3, unfinished business, motion made to allow Chris and staff to maintain the website as usual, and then we voted 3-0 to accept that. Item 4 was new business, and the ITC group has raised $2,500 with several events. Would like to be able to use the whole building, and the next meeting is Wednesday the 12th at 5 p.m. Motion made to do a little search on the elementary school, title search on the elementary school property, and then voted 3-0 to do that. Item 5 was other, motion to get town's attorney involved to answer the H.E.A.T group, and then we voted 3-0 to accept. Item 6, we signed warrants, and then a motion to adjourn at 5:56, and we voted 3-0 to accept. This was respectfully submitted to Chris Littlefield, town manager.
I move we accept the minutes as read.
Second.
All those in favor? It is a vote. We're going to move into public forum, but before we do that, I want to reiterate the fact that there are ground rules. In fact, I believe when you were on the board, we put a policy together for the town that's very similar to what we have here. And I don't recall that, but
Yeah, we never accepted it. We did propose it, but we never voted on
We
it or
didn't.
accepted it. No?
We were always under the guise that anybody should be able to speak if they want to.
well,
Yeah.
That was always mine.
the select persons meet to conduct the business of the town. Citizens may attend all select persons' meetings with the exception of executive sessions. Citizens may tape or record meetings. Under Maine law, citizens do not have the right to speak during meetings unless given permission to do so. We have created a time on the agenda for questions and comments because we're interested in your concerns. Many have chosen to wait and ask questions later in the meeting. From this date forward, questions will only be taken when a hand is raised and acknowledged. We expect everyone to be polite and respectful. Anyone not able to do this will not be allowed to speak. Okay, having said that, we'll move into public forum. Yes.
Just seeing, I sent in some photos of the dead animals. I believe it's a coyote and some beaver. Still there. I watched Charles go by and Al Tempster never get out of their vehicle. The garbage that's been there over a month. I have weekly photos because it's going to be my word against his. And I called today because it was moving for over 3 hours.
Okay, I'm gonna hold you
Okay.
because, that's being worked on.
Okay.
And
Can
hope-
I get an update? Because anytime I call, I get a voicemail or told that's a town clerk thing or call Chris. I never get through, or our conversations haven't been the most constructive. I-
Well, at this point in time, you've requested an ordinance, we're working on the ordinance.
Okay.
That is in process. An ordinance doesn't happen quickly. It will have to go to a town meeting. I'm not sure that it will, it depends on what the selectmen's schedule is, whether they would like to do a special town meeting for that ordinance, or if in fact they will wait and do a regular scheduled town meeting in May. It could be that long before it's actually put into place. But we've got to present something, we've got to make a rough draft, we've got to present something, and that I have 3 or 4 that I've looked at. I have not done a rough draft of one at this point, but it is something that we are working on. We have talked to other towns, we have had a conversation today with Charles about some pros and cons and things that we need to look at. So we are working on it.
Okay.
These
Can I
things
have
don't.
a couple questions?
Yep.
Are you done though?
No, I just gotta say, it's not gonna happen as fast as you want, unfortunately. I can tell you that, but we're trying.
Okay. Couple questions. Word of the mouth is he has more animals coming in.
We've gotta wait and see what happens.
Okay. My other question is, you can follow this up with all the ACOs that have been out there. None of it's been cleaned. I'm on chemo. That's 10 feet from my house. The bacteria, he's openly admitted I haven't wormed them or nothing. The Giardia with the pigs, my kids are right there. Very concerned about that. If he gets more animals come spring, the dead animals are still laying out there. I got pictures.
Right, the animals are from trapping, we know that, we've established that he traps. There's no law against that.
But they shouldn't be laying at the end of his driveway rotting.
Well, I've got to tell you that we've had conversations with animal welfare, and their exact quote is they do not see any issues on that site. That's
So,
exactly what they've told
dead
us.
animals can lay in a school zone.
I'm only telling you what they were told. I did not have the opportunity to reach
That's
out
not
and
a
get the
public
report.
health issue.
I am telling you what they said at Animal Welfare. From the state of Maine, they came on site, I asked them to come back, they refused to come back because they said there is not an issue. That is what they told us.
Smell, dead animals, mooing all hours of the night is not an issue.
I'm telling you
In a
what
bowl
they
that's
said.
pushing
We've gotta
on that
move on.
pallet.
Right.
We've talked this to death, and I wish we could snap our fingers and let it.
I just wish,
You know-
I feel like there's no effort.
Well, we're doing all we can, and hopefully things will come to an end.
Right.
Okay? Yes.
Did any of you select people call the state on that law that I had brought up? There is a state law that says he has to have a certain thing for his animals, his structure that he keeps them in has to be just so. There is a state law.
He does
Now,
have.
if one of
a
you
cover.
select people would call them, perhaps we could
Well-
get something done.
We've
Our
been,
code enforcement officer and our ACO have both taught the Department of Human Services and Animal Welfare.
Have they
It's
talked to the
already been
state
done.
police? Because that is a law. It is getting broken.
The state police, I have no idea.
these 2 people that have been
Or
down,
the DA's office.
they're working under the state law, I would assume.
And the trash, it's been there over a month.
Okay, we're gonna move on, and we're not gonna discuss the landfill tonight, because the selectmen are gonna work on that at a special meeting. So, that one we're gonna move on. Is there anything else?
Can I ask questions about contracts that have to do with landfill, or is that, everything's out?
Well, we're gonna have a special meeting, that's gonna be executive session coming up. I'd rather not talk about any of it tonight, frankly. We need to move the meeting along. We have other business to do.
You can do an executive session about the landfill?
What's that?
You can do an executive session about the landfill?
Yes, we can.
Okay, hearing nothing else, we'll move on. Okay. Under unfinished business, there was a request to discuss a sewer abatement from 217. Yes,
Can we move that to the next meeting?
we can.
And have it on the agenda?
Okay. And a letter was sent to 59 Blake Street under the property maintenance ordinance violation. So there has been some
Paula, can you tell me why you wanna move that?
Yes, because Earl's not here.
Okay.
Okay, so that is being worked on. They did receive a letter.
Well, it went certified.
Yep.
He has not signed it.
Can I ask one thing, and then I'll shut up? Municipal, can't talk. Municipal lawyer. When you said that, what? I'm ignorant to all this town stuff.
The
I've
town
never-
has a lawyer that
Okay.
works with us on many issues.
So you're referring this to? Because you said you were going to refer on to municipal lawyers last week
On
on this whole.
this,
issue.
no. We talked about on the landfill.
No, it was this part too.
They sent
Judy
regular
said it.
and certified mail to the man who owns the property on 59 Blake Street. Picture and copy of the ordinance was sent. And they have been given,
Shirley, don't you remember me asking what that meant, and you said you didn't know at daycare? What that all meant, the municipal lawyer, you said
Well,
I'm
he's
not
gonna
sure.
send the ordinance to our lawyer before. we
Yes,
bring it to
what
town
one we're
meeting.
working
Maybe
on, the
that's what
ordinance
it
we're
was. I
working
wasn't
on.
here, so
Okay.
I'm not positive.
yeah. So this is being addressed,
Thank you.
and there will be fines if it's not taken care of.
I know it's hard to be patient when you want to burn your house down and run. I won't.
Okay. Are you okay with that? We'll move on to new business. Mr. Pittman.
Thank you very much. My name is Dan Pittman. I'm an attorney with Eaton Peabody. I'm not the town's primary municipal lawyer, who's Andy Hamilton, but I work on bond work that the town does. And I'm here tonight because of one of a number of loans you've been working on for the treatment plant. In this case, we're talking about a USDA loan in the amount of $400,000. It was tied to a $1.2 million, it's a $1.6 million total package, $1.2 million in grants, $400,000 in loans. Those $400,000 are going to be reimbursing the town for costs that you paid out of pocket for some of your preliminary work with contractors and some other preliminary work that's been done to date. So I've prepared resolutions authorizing all the signing and so forth, all the paperwork that has to go with this. Also, this is being administered by the Department of Agriculture's Rural Utilities Service. They have some required language. So I've put together, and I'll distribute now, copies of resolutions that authorize the borrowing. Chris as well. And we made 15 copies, so anyone else who's interested. We probably don't have enough for everybody in the room, but if anyone.
We can make more if we need to.
Yeah. And I would suggest, we can do this however you'd like, but I might suggest that I just read them aloud and you can ask me any questions you have about them or anything along those lines. So the resolutions say, I, the undersigned, the duly elected and acting clerk of the town of Hartland. Now, I understand the clerk couldn't be here tonight, so we're gonna ask Susan to sign as deputy clerk. Having custody of the books and records, including minutes of the meeting of the Board of Selectmen, Certify that the meeting was duly called and held on December 17th, 2018. Proper notice was given to each selectman. Further public notice was given in ample time to attend public attendance for the get through. At said meeting, a quorum of the selectmen were present and voted throughout, and the following votes were duly adopted. Whereas the town meeting of the town of Hartland, which we call the town in this document, has previously approved the borrowing of no more than $400,000 to finance the project described below, which is the improvement of the town's wastewater facilities specifically tied to this USDA grant. And in the rest of these resolutions, I call that the project, just for simplicity. Whereas the Board of Selectmen desires to issue a bond to be designated 2018 general obligation bond in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $400,000 and a grant in the amount of $1.2 million, such original bond and the replacements thereof being collectively the bond for purpose of these resolutions to pay for the project. Whereas attached hereto, and by this reference made a part hereto of the specimen of the bond that they have here, and I'll send copies of all of these once they're executed, of course. Now therefore be it voted and resolved by the Board of Selectmen of the town of Hartland, Maine, resolved that the Board of Selectmen hereby ratifies, confirms, and approves its prior actions in approving the project, prior expenditures of funds on the project, and prior interim borrowings therefore. In this case, there weren't actually interim borrowings for this portion. Resolved that the issuance, sale, and delivery of the bond is authorized for the purpose of providing funding for the project. The form of the bond is hereby approved. The bond shall be sold in an aggregate purchase price of not more than $400,000. In this case, it's exactly $400,000. Shall be dated, bear interest at a rate not to exceed 2.5% per annum. We just heard from USDA that they're actually dropping the rate to 2.375% per annum on this bond. And mature as the chairman and treasurer shall approve. Shall be signed by the treasurer and countersigned by the selectmen of the town with the town seal affixed thereto, and shall otherwise be in such form as evidenced in the attachment hereto. The bond shall be subject to call at the option of the issuer on such terms as may be determined by the issuer at the time of issue. Resolved that the treasurer of the town and the selectmen of the town, and each of them singly, is authorized and directed and empowered in its name and on its behalf to do or cause to be done all such actions and things as may be deemed necessary or desirable in order to effect borrowings of up to $400,000 in permanent financing for the project and the issuance and delivery as evidence thereof of a corresponding principal amount of permanent bonds of the town as authorized in the foregoing resolutions. Resolved that the attached loan resolution, RUS Bulletin 1780-27, that's that other thing that I passed out, governing certain terms and conditions pertaining to the bond is hereby adopted. And I'll tell you with respect to that resolution, that's boilerplate language that the law that governs the USDA way of borrowing this money requires you to adopt. It says things, we can go over it if you want, but it says things like you'll use the funds exclusively for the project and you won't take them down to Vegas and you won't, no other shenanigans, that sort of thing. Resolved that the bond be and hereby is sold to the United States of America Department of Agriculture, Rural Utilities Service. Resolved that Eaton Peabody shall be appointed bond counsel to render such opinions and advice as are necessary for the sale of the bond. Are there any questions? That's what I just read, and here's the RUS boilerplate. Any questions I can answer?
Sounds pretty straightforward to me.
Well, you haven't seen the part where I asked you to sign 1,000 documents yet. Okay. I'd suggest then that you call for a vote if there are no other questions.
I'll hear a motion.
I make a motion to accept and sign the bond as needed.
Second.
All those in favor? It is vote.
Okay, so there are two ways we can do this. I need to collect a bunch of signatures. The bond is going to close on, I believe it's Thursday. So I need to get these signatures back to my office tomorrow, get everything processed and turned around. We can pause now and I can distribute all the materials and you can sign them and we can get them sealed and delivered. Or if you'd rather, we can hold off until the end of the meeting.
No, go ahead and.
Yeah, let's do it.
No, I think we should do it. Yep.
All right, so I'm just going to pass these down one at a time, and I'm sorry, different documents are going to go to different people. Susan, could I ask a couple of things? Could you, I've written in deputy clerk, I've written in your name. Could you just give my initials, I'm sorry, your initials there? And then give your initials there and sign there.
So here's $400,000.
That's sealed up.
No, we get this, right there, This is additional, 1.6 million.
This is the bond.
Yes, yes, by doing that, we get that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes, yes,
I didn't say it right, but that's what I meant.
yes, yes, that's exactly right.
Excuse me? Yes, please. And Chris, these are the resolutions that were adopted as part of that. If you can, on the second page, if you could write in, it asks for the votes, if you could write in 3 yeas and 0 nays, and then sign it there. You don't need to sign that one. That's- Thank you very much.
You want me to sign on the top line in print, or do you want me, it says by? Is that where you want me to sign, is on the
Yes,
by
that's fine.
line?
That's fine,
And
yes.
sign it?
Yes. And if this one, I think is just for you, if you could initial there. All right, and sign there and seal there, and we'll pass it on to you. Yes, please. Thank you. I lose track of one of these paper clips. I'll get it back in order. Thank you for your patience here, everyone. And if you could write deputy and second. And Chris, let me pass a few down to you. This is dated as of the 19th. This is saying that you've received the money. Obviously, if something goes wrong between now and then, I won't authorize the release of these documents. This one's for Chris as well. It says that the loan resolution was adopted. Thank you. Is that to catch everything on that one? Let me just double check. Ah, you're right. Thank you.
Now, Dan, do I need to pen the closing?
No, this is a closing and a briefcase.
Okay, cool. Perfect.
I've spent far too much of my life in closing rooms waiting for somebody's fax machine to get fixed or whatever. I like to make
I
this as...
forgot to ask that question, so I was unsure.
No, and that's why I'm taking your time tonight.
Yep.
And 2 more for Chris. The first one is a receipt for the proceeds, which again, we're going to go ahead and cancel it. The second is a statement of debt I took that from your most recent audit. The important thing is that it not be higher than that. So. 1 more for you. Thank you very much. And 1 more test with the seal here. Okay, that's everything I need. Thank you all very much for your time. Sorry to bring the meeting to a crashing halt there.
Thank you, Dan.
Sure. Would you like me to stick around, or?
That's entirely up to you. You're welcome. If you'd like to stick around for a few minutes.
Okay, please, sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
I want to move backwards a little bit. The request for the sewer abatement in 217, if that's on a specific person, it will not be discussed. We'll discuss abatements in general, but not any specific person. Okay?
Should he make an appointment to come and see you? To discuss it?
If you've got an abatement you're looking for yourself,
No.
well, if it's on somebody else, we aren't gonna discuss it. That's not fair. I wouldn't let people discuss
But we
something
already have discussed this.
briefly, and it shouldn't have been.
And it was in the minutes.
I know.
Public.
It
Yeah,
shouldn't have been.
we can, the question is about the process and the legitimacy of it. We can verify that. That is what can be done. I believe that Susan has the background information and has provided that with me. I was expecting to speak to it tonight. We'll bring it back on the agenda next week or next meeting and go accordingly. So,
Okay, moving on. Phone service for the community center.
yeah, I had reached out, we had talked about getting some Wi-Fi over there, but I talked to Alicia again today, and I don't feel like I have, essentially what I've got is monthly information. She's telling me that I need to ask TDS to go in there and give me an actual quote, because they took all of the hardware out that is necessary. So I gotta have her double check it. And so, but at this point, I can tell you what we have. Trish had called and talked to him. Internet with fees and taxes for 3 years is $76 a month. In the first month, we'll have a $14.95 fee on it. The other option is no contract, and it's a bundle with a phone and the internet, and that's $86.11 a month with the first month of $14.95. So that's what I have so far with TDS. I've got to go back and find out what the hardware cost will be. And she said they even took it off the building, so we gotta run it from the pole to the school, is what she told me today. So I got.
Outside, Chris, you're
Yes.
talking, not the internal.
She said they took the internal stuff and they took it off the building also,
Oh,
when they
wow.
unhooked it. So she said I'd have to go back and ask them to give a price from the pole and into the utility room that's there. So I've gotta talk to somebody who knows more about it than I do. I'm not educated on it. I was gonna see if we could get TDS to meet us over there and go into the building and go from there.
We were looking for something short-term for the year, weren't we, at the time?
Maybe Spectrum can help us out.
Okay, get a sign a certificate of appointment.
Yes, we get two here. This is for appointment for 2 years for registrar. It's gonna be Triss. Let's see, to Triss. Right, you've got to appoint somebody for 2 years, and it says to Triss A. Smith of Madison in the county of Somerset in the state of Maine, the municipality of Hartland do in accordance with the provisions of the laws of the state of Maine, hereby appoint you registrar of voters within the municipality of Hartland for the ensuing 2 year, effective January 1st, 2019, and expiring December 31st, 2020. And requesting your signatures.
Okay.
So we should have a motion on that and a vote on appointing Triss as registrar.
Make a motion, please. Second.
All those in favor? Give us a go. That second one we don't need to worry about.
No, Susan has to sign that and Trish.
Oops, excuse me.
And you voted 3-0 on that?
Yes.
Okay, and the next item, Trish is requesting timelines here.
And what does BOS stand for?
Board of Selectmen,
Oh,
I believe. That'd be my guess.
oh well.
May 3rd is the Friday for the vote, as usual.
Yep.
This is our ordinary sequence of events, just change dates, right?
Yep. Yeah, I'm sure she's done it by calendar when she knows number of days and so forth, would be my
So he
guess.
has to vote to,
A motion to accept the timeline that she's presented.
so moved.
Second.
All those in favor? It is a vote. Sounds good to me. Okay, holiday for selectmen's meeting on the 21st.
Yeah, and the 21st is a holiday, do we want to schedule it for the 22nd?
Everybody okay with that?
I guess there's no golf on Tuesday, so.
Our regular first meeting on the 7th is gonna be still the same, right?
Yes, yep, there's no reason to change that. We'll do, I think the 21st is President's Day, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So it'd be on the 22nd. Okay.
Do we need to vote on that?
I don't know if you have to do a schedule change or not. Would that be something that would require a vote, Dan?
Certainly not something that a vote would hurt.
Right, that's what I was gonna say.
I move we change the selectmen's meeting from 1/21/19 to 1/22/19.
Second.
All those in favor? It is a vote. Okay.
And we'll be putting that in the paper like we always do for our posting. Okay, we have one other thing before we go into executive session, and that is under other that's not on your list here, that is RSU 19 has sent a request. They're doing a meeting with public officials, want to know which day you'd like to come. I just would like to report back to them.
I'd like Thursday.
No, that sounds good to me. Is that all right with you?
Thursday,
Thursday, January 3rd.
My son's coming home that day, so I probably will go to the meeting Friday at
Yeah.
1.
That's on, yep.
So if you guys go, that will work out. You hit the
Mhm.
night one, I'll hit the day one. Okay. I'll,
That's, oh, no, I wanna go during the day. I don't like to drive after dark if I don't have to in the winter. Unless you wanna pick me up?
No, if you have
Okay, I'll go on the third for sure.
so I'm gonna let them know that you guys are coming in,
Yeah.
and I'll plan on going the 4th.
May I ask Robin a question?
Sure.
Is this starting back to the set that we had before prior with,
The regular selectmen's meetings that I had, no, I don't think so. I think what this is to discuss the new project, and there is a part that they want to include that's on the Nokomis property.
okay, so it's not the established
No.
workshops that
I
you were
don't,
having
I do
prior?
not believe so, no.
Okay. Okay.
Wanna make a motion for that? That we will attend?
I don't think I need a motion on that, that's just a coordination thing, and it's not a mandatory thing. They just appreciate it if you can come, and I'll let them know that you guys are planning on coming for the evening event. So have some idea.
You know, down there, they're not serving pizza.
Can I just say something
Sure.
about the abatement thing?
Mhm.
When we talked about that, we did not say any names. The person that it was about was the person that came forward.
Right.
We did not talk about
But-
any names.
Now we would be talking about a specific person, and I don't think it's fair.
Well, let's,
That's mine. We'll
let's
put it off
move
till
on
next
and,
week
right,
anyhow.
we'll move on.
Okay. We are gonna be going, well, do you wanna sign warrants first or executive session?
That's up to you guys.
Sign the warrants.
There's not that many.
Chris, John wanted me to tell you, make sure I told you that, the plow crew are doing an excellent job.
Thank you, it's nice
Really-
to hear
Really
that.
pleased.
Nice to hear that, thank you. Thank you.
I'm hearing that too, so. Okay, so we will sign warrants and
Yep.
then we will go into executive session.